What is gaslighting? Lots of people ask me to explain gaslighting, so I'm going to do my best in this short video to tell you what it looks like and some things you can do to avoid it. So very briefly, gaslighting is when you question your own reality. The other person sows seeds of self-doubt and confusion in your mind, and you begin to question your own opinion. I say you feel like you're robbed of your own opinion. And it's very interesting because it's been described as feeling like you're in the twilight zone. I think you all know what I mean by that. It's sort of surreal. You've just had a conversation with someone and you know what you meant and you said what you meant and you spoke your truth, but that's not how they've understood it at all. They understand it quite differently, and they actually walk away, and you walk away with very different meaning of the same conversation. So it's a psychologically manipulative tactic to get a person or a group of people to doubt their reality and their memory. It's very interesting, it stems from a British film in 1938 called Gaslight. And a husband repeatedly changes and alters the home environment and denies doing so when questioned by his wife about the changes. He continues to state that the lighting is the same and that he hasn't heard a thing, sowing seeds of doubt in her perception and her reality. Now, this term didn't really come into play, into popular parlance, I should say, until the 2000s, sort of 2010, around there. And now it's everywhere. We talk about it. And some things that will happen with somebody who is gaslighting you, and they're not always doing it intentionally. A lot of people do. They want to manipulate the situation. But some things they may say is, you're making things up. That never happened. You're being dramatic. There's the exaggeration. You're making things up is, denying that really happened, or that you're exaggerating, or you're blowing things out of proportion. They may trivialize your emotions and say things like, you always get upset. Why do you always get upset? You cry so easily, and it's just strange. You're not a child, you're an adult. So another way to know when gaslighting is happening to you is to recognize the symptoms when a person is being constantly gaslit. They start to show signs of lowered self-esteem and emotional dependence on the abuser. So this is a really good tip. Even if it's not happening to you, notice if it might be happening to one of your children, one of your friends, one of your family members. So during a conflict where someone is gaslighting you or someone else, you may experience a range of emotions from confusion to anger to frustration, and finding yourself going in argumentative circles, both out loud and in your mind. There's this sort of loop. This type of back and forth is exhausting and can affect your self-trust. And what happens is, the more you spend time with that person and the more they gaslight you, that creates an anchor, and you will begin to feel anxious without even realizing it on an unconscious level when you're just entering into a situation with them, when you know that you're going to be in their company or that you're going to spend some time with them. Once you can effectively recognize when gaslighting is happening in that moment, then you can start to break the cycle. So I'm going to give you some tips on what you can do to break the cycle. You really want to stand firm in your truth. The goal of gaslighting is to have the receiving person doubt their perception. So for the person who is doing the gaslighting, their goal may be to avoid accountability while slowly causing you to foster an emotional dependence on them. This creates immense internal confusion, which then chips away at your ability to trust yourself and your own memory. So to combat this, stand firm in your truth. That means believing in yourself, your feelings, and what you know to be true. It means owning your perception, i.e. what you saw, what you heard, what you felt. It sounds like, I know what I saw. Don't tell me how I feel. This is how I feel, because no one can tell you how you feel but you. So stand firm in your truth. Write things down if you have to. That really helps. It helps to ground yourself in your own truth. It can be helpful to write things out as they were happening. Journal about your experiences and get into the habit of reviewing your writings. I know it sounds a bit extreme, but This is a way of protecting yourself so you can begin to break this cycle, because sometimes we can't get away from a certain person. They might be a parent that gaslights us, or a partner. Keep a record of what is happening. A journal is a great way to maintain a record of what is happening over time. Put dates on it. This will help you feel confident about what you know to be true. Keep the conversation simple. Don't get into convoluted conversations. Know your purpose when entering into the conversation. What would you like to accomplish? Resolve. What are the main points that you should like to get across? Stick to them. A person who's gaslighting will blatantly lie, shift the narrative, and will minimize how you feel. Entering the conversation, knowing your purpose, will help you remain centered on a path versus being veered in the different directions that a gaslighting person may take you. And trust me, they can do this fairly unconsciously as well as consciously, but they've been doing it for so long that it's pretty unconscious to them. Be willing to leave the conversation. Boundary time, okay? The person doing the gaslighting may also use tactics such as deflecting and minimizing. In these instances, it's important to practice self-validation and recognize when the conversation is feeling circular and unfair. Give yourself permission to leave the conversation when you start to recognize signs of your reality being denied and minimized. Now, some people find this very uncomfortable. I'm not suggesting that you hang the phone up or walk out of the room. You can give them a warning. If you continue this conversation with me in the way that we're having it, I will put the phone down. And if they do, then you put the phone down. If you're in person, you warn them and then you walk away. It's okay. This is called a physical boundary. It's a verbal boundary. It's also a physical boundary. Don't worry about trying to outsmart the gaslighter. You won't. You just won't. The best way to outsmart a gaslighter is to disengage. You can show up to the discussion with a mountain of evidence, videos, recordings, and more, and a gaslighting person will still find a way to deflect, minimize, or deny. It is more worth it to walk away with your perception intact. Okay? Now, some things you can say to someone who's gaslighting you. Once you start to hear the go-to gaslighting phrases coming up in the conversation, some go-to statements you can incorporate include things like, my feelings and reality are valid. I don't appreciate you telling me that I'm being too sensitive. Okay? That's a great one. Because people will say that, oh, you cry a lot, you're sensitive. I'm a highly sensitive person. I used to get that all the time in my childhood. And there was a lot of gaslighting going on, but as a child, I didn't realize that. Another thing you could say is, don't tell me how to feel. This is how I feel. So keep it very clear that only you know how you feel and no one else can tell you how you feel. Another one is, I am allowed to explore these topics in conversations with you. Do not tell me I am being dramatic. Because they can trivialize you in that way and say, oh, you're being so dramatic. We can't have a simple conversation. But you have the right to present yourself, however, even if you are being dramatic, that's okay. That's your choice. Don't be shut down. Another one is, I know what I saw. And you may have to repeat that several times. I know what I saw. I know what I saw. And as I said, here's a boundary one. I will not continue this conversation if you continue to minimize what I'm feeling, thinking, believing, remembering. Then implement the boundary. Okay? I will share a couple little stories with you. I went out with a gentleman, with a man several years ago before I knew all of this, because I think it's important that you understand that it happens to all of us. And I didn't understand what was going on. We were walking on a beautiful sunny summer afternoon, and a couple were coming towards us, a man and a woman, and I was really interested in how he combined colors. He had on a sort of a burgundy pair of shorts and a sort of very orange shirt, and it really worked. And I looked at my partner and I said, did you see that guy? I really liked what he had. It was a very interesting use of colors. And he said, so you saw the guy. What was she wearing? And I was like, what? She, who? And he said, well, he was with a woman. What was she wearing? And I said, oh, I don't know. It wasn't remarkable to me, I guess. I didn't see it. It was very innocent. And there it came. He was like, it's interesting how you noticed what the man was wearing, but you didn't notice what the woman was wearing. And he was then implying that I was flirting with this guy. I know that sounds far-fetched, but I did come to realize that later in other ways. And that I was only focused on men and I wasn't focused on women. And it was very creepy. And it really knocked me off my stride. I was like, look, I mean, it's years later and I'm still sharing this. But in the immediate aftermath of that, I was really questioning, do I only look at men? What, am I only interested in men? Was I flirting with that guy? I know I wasn't, but I really began to question myself and my actions. Because people who are dealing with gaslighting often wonder about the person's motives if the gaslighter doesn't know they're gaslighting. It gives them a sense of hope. But this guy did know he was gaslighting me because he did it a lot. So essentially, people on the receiving end are trying to gauge how much patience they should have with their abuser. For example, maybe if they don't know what they are doing, I can show them. And the conversation can become more productive. But actually, what you would actually change, if anything, how would you change it if you knew what their motive was? Because this is their pattern. It may help you to learn to navigate the situation more skillfully. For example, if you knew that their motive was to cause doubt, then that may empower you to stand firm in your truth. But it is not necessary to know their motives in order to set boundaries. And that's very much what I felt. I felt, he totally misunderstood me. Let me explain. And I took a lot of time explaining it to him. And of course, that, in his eyes, made me look even more guilty. Another thing you can do is to increase your support system and share your truth. This is a really important one. Psychological isolation and emotional dependence can be the goal of the person who is gaslighting you, especially if they fall under the spectrum of narcissistic personality disorder. When we reach out to our own support system to share with them our reality, what is happening, what we know, and what we've seen, witnessed, and experienced, we are further integrating our truth into our minds. Because you know how important it is when you say something out loud and you hear it, it becomes more powerful and more anchored. The more we stay quiet and downplay our realities, the more likely it is that the seeds of doubt will grow over time. And that's what happened to me. I didn't tell anybody about this guy. And I'll share another little story with you. I have very small pupils in my eyes, and they're always small. It's a condition, not important. It's okay. And I remember in the beginning when he kissed me, he would say things, he would look me in the eye really intently, and he would say, "Your eyelids don't dilate when I kiss you." He didn't even finish the sentence because I knew what he meant. And he would say this a lot. And it got so bad that I literally went to the eye doctor because I thought, well, maybe it's something else going. And he told me what the condition was, and he said it's nothing to worry about. But that's how seriously I took just that one sentence and how it eroded my confidence. And I thought, well, maybe I don't care about him. Maybe I'm not responding to him in a loving way. My eyes are lying, or actually my lies are telling the truth. But they were lying because I was really into the guy. So those are these little insidious, covert things that they can do. And you can reduce the psychological and emotional hold that a gaslighter has on you when you share your truths with safe people. And I remember towards the end of the relationship, I started sharing some of my stories, and my friends were like, "What? You didn't do anything about that? You didn't say?" I said, "Well, yeah, I went to the doctor." And then the other thing was I thought, well, maybe I am flirting with men. Who knows? Maybe it's just an unconscious thing. So this is the bottom line. It can be very disorienting to have a conversation with a gaslighting person because it knocks you off your center and changes the path of the discussion to something that now blames you and your feelings for blowing things out of proportion, crying too much, exaggerating, when you are just sharing your feelings. So it is more than okay to walk away and grieve the reality that your needs in the conversation may not be met. Standing firm in your truth and leaning into your support system can help ground you back into reality. Lastly, practice self-compassion always for what you are enduring in the relationship. This will help you navigate the feelings associated with being gaslighted. I really hope that helps, and I'd like you to take some time after this video to just think about some of the people in your life. I'm not asking you to look for problems, never want you to do that, but I'd like you to just see if any of these relate to any people in your life, and then you can begin to set some boundaries. Thank you very much for coming on this journey with me today, and stay safe.